Hello and welcome back to the Way to Native Chronicles. What you've probably noticed from the thumbnail of this video and the title is it's a little bit different from what you're used to on this channel, but I'd like you to hang in there for a bit. It is related to the Way to Native Chronicles in the sense that it touches on the similarities of residential schools in Canada and what we are seeing happen in Canada currently. As some of you may know, my wife is a residential school survivor. She's Denetha. And what we've been seeing lately is called a 1 million March for Children, taking place all across Canada. And maybe some of you in the States haven't heard of this, and if you're further abroad, probably not either, but it may be a growing phenomenon, and it's in the Canadian context, it's really quite surprising that you see so many Canadians get up in arms because this is a topic, a subject that really cuts close to home. There's a few things that I just wanted to comment on, and because I haven't seen it addressed anywhere in the media, whether it's on YouTube, social media, or of course, broadcast TV. And what we're seeing is parents are in the streets saying, we demand the right to determine what is and what isn't taught to our children. We don't want our children taught things that we don't believe in. And this quite often comes from immigrant families and people of the Muslim and the Hindu faith and other faiths. So what we're seeing is these huge marches in Canada, populated by all kinds of people, the most diverse group of people that you could find, and they're being loudly opposed by teachers' unions and the like, rather homogenous groups in comparison, who are denouncing them as being full of hatred and intolerance and against diversity, which is really, really ironic. So, the comment that I wanted to make on this, what we're seeing here, is that from my perspective, and that gleaned from my wife, who is a little, bashful to speak in front of the camera, so I will, even though I'm not much better, is that there is a striking similarity to the mistake made by the Canadian government back when they put all these Native First Nations children into residential schools against their parents' will. This is something that the Canadian government has profusely apologized for and paid damages for over the recent years. And it's one of the, we have the Every Child Matters shirts being worn, which will be going on again at the end of this month. So people really recognize this is such a terrible mistake that our country has made. I mean, how can you take children away from their parents and as a government say, it's not you who decides what your children should believe and be taught and be indoctrinated in. It's us, because the government actually knows better than you parents. That is precisely what the Million March for Children is all about. It's the parents objecting, standing up for their rights, as supported by the United Nations, that the rights of parents are above the rights of government when it comes to their children. So doesn't this sound like a complete repeat of the same mistake that the Canadian government made back when they forced children into residential schools? I don't want to diminish the harm that was caused in residential schools, because they are two separate things and two different histories. But in this respect, it is exactly the same mistake. The stake at the bottom of it is the government stepping in and saying, you have no right to refuse your children being indoctrinated. Children are being taught things that parents object to very strongly, and it really unites parents across all racial and cultural lines, especially immigrants coming to this Canada. And it's really quite a sight to behold, and I think very perplexing for those who always thought, oh, those conservatives and Christians are the problem. No, it's everybody except them. And now people are wondering, well, who is really the ones that are intolerant and against freedom? So I think I'll let that sit with you there. If you'd like to comment on this video, am I going too far with that comparison, or can we go further yet? I mean, it's a very broad subject, so we could talk about many things, how the gender ideology being introduced into schools is in fact something that we have to talk about, because sure, we're talking about trans rights, but those rights also come into collision with other rights, like women's rights or girls' rights, when it comes to safe space in locker rooms and bathrooms, and what's going to happen to girls and women's sports. So whenever rights collide like that, we have to be able to speak about these things. And we can't talk about them if the press and human rights officials just sweep us away and say, we won't stand for any hatred. We're not hateful people. In fact, if you just look at the recordings of the marches done by fair broadcasters, you'll see that the people that are protesting as parents, they're not hateful. They're just concerned for their children. So let's not make that same mistake, Canada, all over again by having the government take the children away from parents. The children do not belong to the government, and they especially do not belong to teachers and activist groups trying to glorify their compassion and use these children as guinea pigs in some grand social experiment that most of them will regret very much later on, once the irreversible effects are felt on their lives. And with that, I'm talking about halting adolescence with drugs and then going to surgeries and things like that while children are still young. So there's a lot of issues. It's a lot at stake here. And right on to your parents for getting out into the streets. Let me hear from you in the comments, and subscribe to this channel if you like what you hear and want to continue this on. But till next time, God bless, from the Weighted Native Chronicles.
Well, I'll tell you, you are out to lunch. If you think it's acceptable to not show up because you think there's some pride activities going on at school, right? Oh, that's fine. You know, because I'm going to show my opinion by hanging out at the mall. But meanwhile, all of those kids who aren't, involved in, say, the East Street Alliance or whatever, I don't even know if we have that anymore in our school, they're here when we did Ramadan for Lion Time, and they're showing respect in the class for your religion, right, for your beliefs. It goes two ways. If you want to be respected for who you are, if you don't want to suffer prejudice for your religion, your color of skin, your whatever, then you've got to give it back to people who are different from you. That's how it works. It's an exchange. And it isn't like that in all countries. As I told you, in Uganda, literally, if they think you're gay, they will execute you. If you believe that kind of thing, then you don't belong here. Because that is not what Canada believes. We believe in freedom. We believe that people can marry whomever they want. That is in the law. And if you don't think that should be the law, you can't be Canadian. You don't belong here, and I mean it. I really mean it. And it's not a joke, Mansour. I said back and forth. You want it, you gotta give it. It just makes me angry.